Later with Mo Kelly on KFI AM 640.
The Sean Diddy Combs trial. I'm going to talk about it. It's underway. The prosecution, just in case you haven't been following closely, wasted no time in depicting Diddy as not only a monster, but one with wide-ranging abuse and criminality. This case, as is true with every other case, has nothing to do with whether Diddy is actually guilty. It really doesn't. It's more about whether the prosecution can meet its burden of proof. And if the prosecution's case is going to be largely built on testimonial evidence, as opposed to, say, documentary evidence, Diddy has more than a slight chance of either a hung jury or a not guilty verdict. And I did not stutter. Witnesses will be cross-examined and subsequently impugned. Testimony will be rebutted and redirected. It's never, ever clear-cut. This is a criminal trial. The standard of proof is beyond a reasonable doubt. If it were a civil lawsuit trial, the standard would be much lower, preponderance of evidence. So this is a much heavier lift to put Diddy in prison for what would presumably be the rest of his natural life. But don't get me wrong. The testimony from witnesses thus far has been both chilling and repulsive. The things that Cassie Ventura testified that she was subjected to made me sick, probably you as well. And if you haven't found out about it or read about it, you need to read up about it. She was humiliated and abused in just about every way imaginable and even unimaginable. There will be a parade of witnesses and testimony. It will likely seem as if there's no way Diddy won't be found guilty. But this is just the prosecution's portion of the case. The defense will have its turn as well, and it is only in search of converting one juror. Not all 12, just one. Because one is enough to stand in the way of a conviction. I mention all of this because Diddy was remanded to prison in large part because the court considered him a flight risk and a threat to tamper/intimidate witnesses. And that takes me back to the top. If the prosecution's case rests largely on witness testimony, it is begging for the possibility that witnesses may recant. They may perjure themselves or simply disappear. And I mean disappear. I say all this to say the American judicial system has always made room for money and power. Diddy still has both. He's not done yet. I know he's not done yet because what I saw with the Menendez brothers just today. Today, again, reminded me that our justice system is not only fallible, it's open to manipulation, social manipulation, political manipulation, you name it. Because, and here's the truth, our justice system is not and has not ever been a search for truth. This is not about whether Diddy actually did it. It's a competition to put on the more convincing case. This is not about whether Sean Diddy Combs did all the sex trafficking, did all the things that he's been accused of. This is only about whether he can buy his own acquittal through slick lawyers and legal maneuvers. In the way I was absolutely not surprised at the turn of events with the Menendez brothers today. You should be prepared for the distinct possibility that Sean Diddy Combs will artfully use his wealth and power to tip the scales of justice, air quotes, to favor him. Celebrity has gotten a lot of people off over the years. Sean Diddy Combs won't be the first. And I'm not predicting that he will get off. I'm saying I just don't have any faith in the American justice system because it has let me down too many times. Now, you may only be mad about Eric and Lyle Menendez or OJ and maybe one other person, maybe Oscar Pistorius was not even an American case. But me, I can think of a lot of them over many years and many decades. So you might as well prepare for the distinct possibility that Sean Diddy Combs will get off regardless of the case made against him or the evidence put before him. Because it's 2025. Nothing makes sense anymore except nonsense. For KFI AM 640, I'm Mo Kelly. The late, great, air quotes, Pete Rose may be on his way to the Major League Baseball's Hall of Fame because of a recent announcement which removed him from the permanently ineligible list. Here are some facts. Pete Rose is still Major League Baseball's all-time hits leader. Nobody has more hits than him. Nobody. Nobody is anywhere close. His on-field resume is Hall of Fame worthy. It's undeniable. Here's some other facts. Pete Rose bet on baseball. Pete Rose bet on his own team while manager of the Cincinnati Reds. After 15 years of public denial, Rose finally admitted to both back in 2004. That's not subject to debate. Here's Rule 21 of Major League Baseball. Quote, any player, umpire, or club or league official or employee who shall bet any sum whatsoever upon any baseball game in connection with which the bettor has a duty to perform shall be declared permanently ineligible. Remember, that's player, umpire, club, league official, or employee. And permanently ineligible is not to be confused with for life. Permanently means forever. It's not the same. Shoeless Joe Jackson and other members of the 1919 Chicago White Sox were permanently ineligible for Hall of Fame consideration for fixing the World Series, which is betting by another name. The team has subsequently been called the Black Sox for the black mark it placed on the sport. That's really important. The rule against betting on baseball in any form by any player, ump, or personnel member was inarguable and sacrosanct. Note, I didn't say fan. Don't conflate the two. Just because you can bet because of FanDuel or what have you, that's fan stuff, not people connected to the game. Earlier this week, baseball commissioner Rob Manfred made the decision to remove not only Pete Rose, but even shoeless Joe Jackson of the Chicago Black Sox from the permanently ineligible list. It doesn't automatically mean either or both will be elected to the Hall, but more likely than not, they will get in. The point of my final thought tonight is this. This was a horrible, horrible, horrible decision and doesn't take into account the larger implications. It says that all bets are off, pun intended. It says there is no longer any red line. Tacitly, it's been made clear that there is no death penalty for betting on baseball or fixing games. Do you hear me? You can still end up in the Hall of Fame. The Major League Baseball Hall of Fame has never been a repository for the moralists. There are plenty of objectively and undeniably horrible people in the Hall of Fame presently. But the individual moral failings of the individual cannot and do not call into question the integrity of the game. It can't bring down the totality of the sport. The reason why people like A-Rod, Mark McGwire, Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, Sammy Sosa, and others are not in the Hall of Fame is due to alleged and or confirmed use of performance-enhancing substances. Integrity of the game. Whereas there was no official rule banning players from the Hall of Fame for PED use, those aforementioned players haven't gotten close nonetheless, even though their on-field accomplishments normally would merit inclusion. But back to Rose. It's now open season, another pun intended. There is literally nothing to discourage anyone from betting on baseball, big picture. And that's a big problem. Not casting aspersions, but let's say a player like, Shohei Ohtani, just picking a random player. Shohei Ohtani has a Hall of Fame resume right now. Even if he retired today, he's probably in. And let's say somewhere down the line, hypothetically speaking, of course, we find out that he was fixing games, throwing games, or betting on baseball as a player. He would never do that. This is all hypothetical. You would not be able to turn around and say, well, you can't put him in the Hall of Fame because, in theory, you would have let Pete Rose in. You would have let shoeless Joe Jackson in. And Rule 21 is no longer sacrosanct. There's no cudgel to hold over players' heads. There is no backstop. Another pun. There's no backstop to protect the sport from the actions of these individuals. No proverbial sword of Damocles, that's for Mark Ronner, to hold over any player today or in the future. Because you've made the risk worth the reward especially for players or player personnel. Here's why. And this is something that you probably haven't heard on any other show or any other discussion about this. Did you know it's not illegal? It's not illegal for players to bet on themselves in their own sports. It is not inherently illegal. Usually how players went about it was illegal because they were using illegal means or bookies in which to do it. But in and of itself, it's not illegal. It's not breaking the law. Professional sports across the board forbid it and threaten to ban players for it. But it's not specifically against the law. Don't confuse disallowed with illegal. They're not the same. And I'm coming home. Major League Baseball, by removing the deterrent of making someone permanently ineligible, you've now created the permanent possibility that a player or many players will risk the integrity of the sport to make some money on the side. It's the worst kind of bet that any sports commissioner can make. History will not be kind to Major League Baseball Commissioner Rob Manfred, nor should it be, because there is no reason for any player now and going forward not to consider betting on their own sport, betting on themselves, because at the end of it all, the worst thing that could happen is they would only be suspended and nothing more. For KFI AM 640, I'm Mo Kelly. I hope I did this right, but I've been thinking about it all week long. There are some things you just can't get back. There are some places in which you won't be able to return from. Sometimes you can go too far and there's no finding your way back. I believe that's where we are as a nation politically. Here's an example. A Democratic candidate for Virginia's House of Delegates announced over the weekend that she and her husband, wait for it, they're swingers. Yvonne Rohrer explained Saturday that she wanted to reveal something that she thought could be used against her. That she and her husband of 22 years, even though they're deeply committed in love, they consider themselves to be ethically non-monogamous. Yes, swingers. I don't know why they want to call it ethically non-monogamous, but they get around. Quote, our lifestyle choice mostly includes consensually dating other couples together and being part of a vast and growing community of like-minded people. Close quote. Swingers. First, Yvonne, it can't be used against you because nothing matters anymore. We don't live in 1993 anymore. The sitting president of the United States just accepted a $400 million bribe in the form of a gold-plated 747. That was accepted the same news cycle as the Trump organization striking a $5.5 billion golf course and hotel deal in Qatar. Weren't we supposedly concerned about Hunter Biden peddling influence and making more than $11 million in connection to Burisma? That was just last year. 11 million is 5,000 times less than 5.5 billion. Mark, check my math, but I'm pretty sure I'm right.
Yeah, I keep going, please.
But the point is, nothing matters. Not the Hatch Act, not the emoluments clause in the Constitution, not sex with Playboy models and porn stars. So why would being swingers matter in 2025? Don't get me wrong. Thank you, Yvonne Rohrer, for falling on your sword. I'll just say sword. And letting the voting public know the truth about your pineapple sex life. I'm old enough to remember when Billy Carter, the brother of President Jimmy Carter, was hauled before Congress because of what he was doing in Libya. In Libya. Billy Carter visited Libya 3 times with a contingent from Georgia. He eventually registered as a foreign agent of the Libyan government and received $220,000 in the form of a loan. And it was only some $1,000 repaid. Our country went apoplectic over that, a $220,000 loan. And he was the brother of the sitting president. Now you can have Eric Trump just announce his meme coin will go public next week. And it should net him and the Trump organization billions of dollars. Nothing matters anymore. There are some things you just can't get back from. There's some places in which you won't be able to return from. Sometimes you can go too far and there's no finding your way back because that's where we are. Nothing matters. We had a president who used a cigar as a sex object with an intern on the Resolute desk. We have a president presently who has cheated on every wife, all three of them. Don't try to tell me that we care about morals or our political leaders ever again. It's a lie. So no, nobody cares about somebody running for office who engages in group sex with strangers and partner swaps. That well-equipped horse, wink, wink, left the barn a long time ago, and it's not coming back. Remember when Ronald Reagan was accused of arms trafficking to Iran for 5 whole years of his 8 years as president? You know, the Iran-Contra affair. And that was one of the greatest scandals, arguably, in presidential history. Well, 2 days ago, our government just agreed to sell Saudi Arabia $142 billion in arms. Directly, out in the open. The same country responsible for the murder of Jamal Khashoggi and the same country responsible on some level for 9/11. All facts. None of it matters. Not even a blip on the radar in 2025. And speaking of Saudi Arabia and family members of sitting presidents, either peddling influence or family members of presidents benefiting, this is on the heels of the country gifting Jared Kushner and his company $2 billion. And everything I said is a fact. And nothing of what I said matters anymore. There's no going back. And I'm not even mad. I'm just pointing this out. This is a true statement. This is not about Democrats or Republicans because none of it matters. If you're okay with a $400 billion plane, don't talk to me about $11 million to somebody's private citizen's son. I just want some consistency. We could have a future presidential candidate who is part of Diddy's freak-offs. It will not matter because we don't have standards anymore. We already have a felon as a president. What's a sex trafficking and racketeering conviction? It's just next door, maybe in the same yard. But here's the point. You or we, as a nation, can't delude ourselves with belief of this supposed American exceptionalism when we embrace not having any standards. You can't care about corruption last year and then disregard it this year. You can't care about the supposed sexual behavior of elected leaders last year, but not this year. Getting ready to step on some toes. You can't care about the cognitive decline of a president last year, say it with me, but not this year? Question mark. I am Ron Burgundy. It just means that nothing matters anymore. And there's no coming back from that because standards require a leg to stand on. And last I checked, we've run out of legs. So Yvonne, be proud that you're a pineapple princess. Nobody freaking cares. In fact, it might help you win because nothing matters. For KFI AM 640, I'm Mo Kelly.